cut out the roof of this T6 today, wrapped it all in plastic, nice and protected, cut it out, fitted the strengthening frame. I'll give you a little peek inside of that. Worktop's a bit of a mess, going to clean this up, clean the workshop up. Got a big box ready, which is the high top, and yeah, but welcome. Let's see what is going on behind the curtain. So we've still got the standard floor in, got some bonded windows fitted, all this lining is going to come out, but you see we've got the Reimo strengthening frame added across to the front there, these steel pressings that go along the sides, and they're all bonded and pop riveted in. This will all be trimmed up, and then there's a strengthening frame that goes across the back. But yeah, that is the first stage of the Reimo elevating roof done on this T6, and next up is the fiberglass shell that's in that big box. It's nice and dry, so I can pull this out, get the shell here, and yeah, get it pulled up on the hoist, and then get that fitted, and then we'll fit the tent. And what else we got going on? Got a couple of replacement captain seats there. They're going to go in this T6. Got the front spoiler cut out quite a bit on the CNC machine this week as well. Definitely mastering that puppy. Yeah, been a good week. Been a good week for sure. First time fitting elevating roof on my ones, and should all go to plan. Fingers crossed. So, got the roof, the main part of the roof minus the spoiler on the floor here. Got the gantry with the electric hoist. That's rated to 250 kg, so it can handle this, no worries. And I've got the cradle that I built a few years ago, so just welded up some box section, and I've got these suction pads that I think they're rated to like way over 100 kg each. So take these plastic covers off, make sure they're all clean, get some moisture on there, get a seal on the top, and then pump the air out, and yeah, that will allow us to lift up the shell, and then I'll pull the van back in, drop it down, get the two rear hinges connected, and then the two gas struts, and then that will just sit on there. Obviously the aperture's already cut on the front of that roof now. So now the roof's still suspended, but I've got these hinges over where they need to go. This is kind of the critical part, because I don't want my hands in here if this was to fail. But yeah, what I need to do is fix these in place with the fixings that I've already put in the roof. You can see those riv nuts. There's a rubber gasket that goes in there, and then we put the gas struts up from this bracket down to this bracket, and then that'll be the roof sort of in its suspended when its upright position, and then I need to fix the tent in place. Feels precarious, got to trust the gimbal, not a gimbal, the, what would you call it, the hoist. Yeah, fix these in, and yeah, get it done. Okay, so I've got the Reimo elevating roof fitted to the T6, and you can see that it doesn't have the front spoiler here. And I'll show you, if I go in and give it a little push, you can see that I haven't fixed the tent down, so that's the next job. I'm just checking that it's all aligned correctly, and that the actual spot where the spoiler is going to sit is correct. And what I will do is, you can actually see as well, you see I've got all of these holes, and they're self-tapping screws for the plastic perimeter trim that traps the tent. So the tent comes, the Reimo roof and most of the elevating roofs come in this state with the tent sort of stapled up. And what I'll do is I'll give a final clean up. As I say, I've prepped the plastic perimeter trim that's down there. I'll show you. It comes in cut lengths, and what you have to do is you have to heat it up with a heat gun and bend it and actually form it. It's the shape of the van, you can see here, it's got that form in it, and I did that by heating it up and pressing it onto the roof of the van with a little bit of timber. You can see all of these holes have been cut and self-tapping screws gone through, so you can see there's swarf trapped on all the back of this. And what I'll do is, before I fix that, I'll go around and I'll make sure that there's no swarf on there, just with a little bit of sandpaper, so we don't transfer any of that swarf up onto the roof and trap it with the tent. But this is a bit of a critical point really for fitting of these roofs, because the tension in the tent is really important. Making sure that it is symmetrical is really important, just so it looks good on the outside. And we really want the tension to be uniform across the front, down the sides, and across the back. And that means that when the tent does go up, you don't have any like really horrible creases in it. The way that I'll do that is I'll start in the middle here, and I will get a nice amount of tension on the middle, and then I'll go out to the corners, and then I'll work slowly by pulling in the tent along the front here, and then I'll work backwards, and I'll get the corners at the back done as well, and then work across there. And it's just one of those jobs that just need to be methodical, because as you put those screws through the tent, obviously you're creating holes in that tent, and if they're in the wrong position and they end up on the outside, you can put it tighter, but you can't, once you've made that hole, make that tent any looser. Reimo recommend getting a ratchet strap and putting it over the top of the tent and pulling the tent down by like 10-15 mil, or you can put the actual fixings onto the front here and use the ratchet straps. And what that does, it means that you can fix the tent and then release that ratchet strap, and then it will give an extra bit of tension in the tent. I've done that in the past, but if I'm honest, I prefer just doing it without the roof under any sort of tension, and just being very methodical. And then obviously we're going to be left with a space that's on the inside of the tent, and a space that's on the outside. The inside is sealed up with a sealer that goes underneath the remainder of the tent, and then the tent's trimmed down, and then the outside has a bead of silicone that goes on the outside as well. Obviously the shape of the roof, most of the water that's going to hit that tent is going to run down and then run off the side into the original gutters. But if you do get any sort of driving rain, you don't want that to come up or underneath the tent and then into this space. You can see here, this is the strengthening frame, and this step in this pressing allows for the inside bed to come down. That's on its own gas struts, and then that'll sit on the side of there, and then that's super strong because it's sealed on the top here, riveted, and then sealed on the bottom and riveted as well, and obviously recreates the structure of the vehicle while still allowing the vehicle to flex. So yeah, it's Sunday today, so I'm in on a Sunday, and I'm just going to take my time. It's a very satisfying job when done right, so I'll try and show it, as much of it as possible, probably be a shot from sort of the outside as it comes together, and then I'll show you when it's all done. And then once that tent is in place, what I'll do is I'll do that sin on the outside, and then I'll bond the spoiler in place on the front. The Sikaflex that bonds that in place will have to dry overnight. We'll put some masking tape on it, and then come back tomorrow or next week, and then we'll do the nice bead around the spoiler that just makes the whole installation look professional. So yeah, crack on. I'll show you how we dry fit the spoiler. So the spoiler is like the actual roof shell, fiberglass. So it comes to us like this, in finished white gel coat. You see the fiberglass inside here, and obviously there's not the tightest tolerances when it comes to the fiberglass, but what we'll do is very carefully, I'll lay this down onto the space we have at the front here, so I don't want to scratch any of the paintwork. you can see on this side it's fitting sweet because I've still got a space. You see there's a little bit of bodywork between the actual windscreen and the spoiler, and that's ideal. And you can see how sometimes you need to fettle these spoilers, but this one's actually pretty good. And you can see how it follows the shape of the front of the van here, and you see there's a small gap between the rubber seal on this side, and that just means that the roof can come down and not catch the spoiler. You only have these spoilers on the long wheelbase versions of these roofs. And what I'll do is I'll just pull this down. You can see the edge is just sitting on the top of the windscreen there. I'll go around the other side and just check that we're about right. So if I jump up here, you can see you can see I've got that same amount of space on that bodywork there, and what that will allow me to do is run a small bead of Sikaflex round and around here, and most of what we'll do is there'll be some big beads of Sikaflex on the inside here that will actually bond it down to the roof, and then this is just to stop water getting in. But you can see you've got the original gutters here, and what I'll do is make sure that there's a gap so that any water that gets trapped in the actual gutters that's underneath this roof will still run down underneath this spoiler and out and then down the front here. Otherwise you get water pooling behind this spoiler. But yeah, I think we're good. We're good there. I'm happy with that. You can see there's a little bit of play, which is good. And yeah, it will look pucker when it's all done. In terms of actually fixing the tent, so what I will do is I use like little mandrel or a very small screwdriver to actually just punch through the tent when I'm certain that I'm in the right position, and then we've just got these self-tapping screws that Reimo supply to actually trap that plastic perimeter trim in place. What you've got to be careful of with these is obviously that those cutting blades in effect of the self-tapping, obviously it's already been drilled and these have already been driven in and then swapped and cleaned off, but I want to make sure that those that cutting blade and that thread doesn't catch any of the fibres of the tent as it goes through and sort of like pull it or even rip it. So that's, you'll be very careful. Yeah, with that, I would prefer, if I'm honest, that these weren't self-tappers. I guess that Reimo intend to speed the job up by doing that, but I always think that you're not going to drive these through first of all. So I actually pilot. Do a little pilot hole for these and then drive them through just so that they cut their own little thread in that single skin steel. So, but obviously these are standard galvanized steel or zinc coated. They're not going to be exposed to any moisture. So yeah, take our time. As I say, these are just little bits and pieces that I picked up over the years of fitting quite a few of these roofs, and yeah. All right, okay, crack on. Clean these up, and then I'll crack on with the tent. I'll try and show you as much as possible. I'll be inside the tent though, so I'll have a light in there, and I'll have my head torch on. I've got the roller shutters pulled. Well, this one pulled down today, and that one pulled half down because it's super windy here in Cornwall. There's actually a yellow weather warning today. So yeah, I mean, on a Sunday, my wife, she's at home at the little cabin that we're renting, reading books and drinking tea, and yeah, I'll plough on and listen to my podcasts, and yeah, cool.
That get maybe not ignored but understudied because they're not as obvious as or the function is not as obvious as some of the basic survival related motions. I think
on the disgust point, actually, you mentioned about months, and then you maybe that's a stronger sense of cabin fever, whatever. But yeah, I kind of had it in my head. I thought that would be maybe something that we would have seen: increased pathogen concern, more heightened disgust risk
older ones, and that this is correlated with interest in short-term mating and.
Okay, you can see I've got the two corners seams in place now, and you can see it's looking very uniform. You can see that it's still loose across the front here, and it's all loose across the back. You can see that's what I've got. I've got the screws and stainless washers in the corners, and then now I've measured and checked that that opening is level. And you see there's quite a lot of creases, but I'm going to pull that tight as I put those fixings back in place across that front there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. These are like the most critical because you want to get these in the right place. That seam runs down, it's nice and tight. That seam runs down, it's nice and tight, and then we'll get rid of as much of these creases as possible, and then we'll obviously work our way back. See that this is loose, but work our way back and trap this with the plastic trim that runs along the back here, and then this one will go right. Oh, there goes my LED light. That one will be trapped by that plastic gaiter. You see, you've got this elastic part across the back here as well, which is really handy. They put that in so that the back is always under extra tension, so that there's less chance of the temp material getting caught in those stainless hinges. Yeah, I'll persevere with this, and I'll show you the end result. Okay, so that is the tent fixed down. That's the entire perimeter of the tent fixed down. Really happy with the tension on it. You see the window there is nice and level, both sides are equal, nice and tight across the side there, no sort of unnecessary creases. The back's nice and tight too. Well, obviously it's got the elastic in it, but yeah, really happy with how that one came out. It took me about an hour to do. Yeah, you can see this side, same again, nice and equal. Nice bit of tension, not too much, no unnecessary creases. Yeah, really happy with that. I'll show you on the inside too. So, I grab my head torch. Got a bit of light. But yeah, so you can see, you're actually going to be able to see this. Excuse the lines there with the shutter speed, but you can see the whole of the perimeter trim has been fixed down right the way round. So what I'll do next is I will put a speed of silicone right in there in the gap, and then what I'll do is I'll spray adhesive the remainder of this down and then trim any excess off. But yeah, that is how it goes. So you got the shadow of my pocket cam, giant pocket cam. But let me give you a look from up here. Yeah, sweet as a nut. Happy with that. Looking good. So yeah, get it sealed up on the inside and then on the outside, and then we'll get that spoiler in place. But in effect, that's how you fit an elevating roof to a T6. Obviously didn't show you too much of how the strengthening frame goes in or cutting the roof out, but it'll give you more of an idea of how those tents are fixed to the roofs. And you know, if you are going to be doing sort of like custom, you know, you might see on YouTube people make like custom elevating roofs, and if you are going to make any type of awnings or yeah, basically attach any type of waterproof fabric canvases to your van in some way, shape or form, you can buy that plastic perimeter trim in separate lengths, and you can make up your own iterations, designs of that. Basically trap it with that perimeter trim and then sit on the inside, sit on the outside, and you've got a waterproof seal that might be handy for some of your own creations. Show you before I put the bead of silicone. I'll show you how it looks on the outside currently. So you can see that the material just comes down and then loops underneath that perimeter trim. So you're left with a space where this silicone seal, and you see it's nice and uniform right the way along and avoids the hinges and these gas struts. But yeah, that's where we'll put the bead of the silicone right the way along and along the front there, around this corner and right the way along. Sweet. Seems nice and tight and uniform. Happy days. See, this is 25mm rubber grommet that's going to go in that hole that I showed you for the solar cables. And obviously this doesn't have to be waterproof because it's on the inside of the elevating roof, but what I've done is I've just put a hole punch through that, and then that's going to go up in there, and it will just stop those solar cables from chafing as they go through that single internal skin. So I'll put that up in place now. Okay, So we've got the spoiler glued in place as well. You can see you've got some masking tape, but that's just it initially glued in place. Got it all lined up along the windscreen there, and yeah, looking good. So roof's all sealed up and spoiler in place. So what I'll do is I'll leave that to probably go off 24 hours, maybe 48, and then I'll seal around that with white Sikaflex. And that's that done. So then the next steps for this van are all that lining and that flooring is going to come out. And so we're going to do all the first fix, and but we're also going to fit a solar panel to the roof. Now it's on some rails. You can do that when the roof's off, but because of the tent, I prefer to have the tent fixed to the van, so I know where it is. It's out of the way. There's no chance I'm going to drill through that roof and touch the tent or anything like that, because that'd be an absolute nightmare. So yeah, fit solar panel, get the solar wires coming through a gland, fit some rails for some roof bars, and then start all the internal trim. So we've got systems to go in, and the full width smart beds rock and roll bed that matches the upholstery for the replacement front captain seats. Yeah, so give you an idea of what pre-owned vans can look like when you're at this build stage, this first fix stage. So I just pulled up the floor, and yeah, that shows how much crap can go underneath one of these floors. It's that and it's obviously it's been screwed to the floor, and this vehicle is supplied by a customer. There's no real issues, there's no rust or anything like that, and it would be really satisfying to clean this up, because most of it's just dust, and we'll give it a spray and a clean. But yeah, it's just absolutely nuts how much dirt and debris can work its way underneath a floor. Bearing in mind, it's a really well fitting floor. But just obviously falls down the gaps, and then the vibration of the van means that it just moves over and moves across, and it's just all spread out. But I'll hoover this up, clean it out, and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards, obviously before we put our subfloor down, and yeah, crack on with the rest of all of the lining with this van. Okay, clean floor. There you go. Soaked it out, hoovered it, rubbed it down with some soapy water, and then actually just hosed it out, scrubbed it down with a brush, and just dried it off with a towel. So I'm going to leave that to dry now, and then that's a nice clean base for me to sound deadening, insulation, a little bit more first fix wiring, softwood battens, insulation between the floor, and then 12mm subfloor is going to go down. But yeah, looking a lot cleaner than it was. Alright, that's my Sunday done. You see, obviously I've done the trim around that window, because that trim, that flexible carpet is trapped by that rubber trim on that bonded window, and that will be a lot neater once the rest of all that trim's gone in. So yeah, that's the first bit of trim that went in. We did the windows, so cool. Alright, I'll probably see you on Monday. It's a beautiful autumnal morning here in Cornwall. Got the sun streaming into the workshop. So this morning I'm going to do a little bit more internal trim inside of the high top on the T6. Probably spend a couple of hours on that, so that I can get that high top down, and I think I'm going to get the T6 back out, and then I'm going to jump onto the MB100D for a couple of hours. And yeah, good days, good mornings when it's like this. I want to say tale of two different seasons. Yesterday, kind of the wrong way around, but yesterday it was stinking weather. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the headlining back in here, and I'm going to trim it down, and then there's some plastic trim that goes on here, and then the loops for the straps that tie. You see those two loops at the top, they'll marry up with loops that go into this steel frame. Yeah, trim that down and get the rubber seal around there, and then put a little bit of Veltrum carpet, the same as this, around the front there, and that means that I can bring this elevating roof down and get it secured and get it outside. You can also see that I've now sealed around the spoiler, so it's nice and secure now. It's not going anywhere, so that's been sealed around the outside. You see on this side, excuse the dust, but yeah, you see there's a nice Sikaflex bead right the way around the sides there, and yeah, that's nice and secure. Happy with that. Excuse the sun. So yeah, spoilers in place, so then we can bring that roof down, pop the van out, and then we'll get the MB100D back in for the rest of the day. I'm going to put some flooring down in that and get some oil on the furniture and a few other little bits, and then yeah, this will come back in. So this is the cab headlining that came out of the T6. It's in pretty good condition, and what we'll do is we'll put it back up there, and then I'll use the steel stripping frame at the front to cut the section out here, and basically means that above your head in the cab, obviously we've cut out some of the roof, and this will marry up, and this is like a final trim which has to work really well with this headlining. So just be careful, make sure we trim it in the right place, because obviously this is like a thermo formed pressed piece of that sort of fiberboard with this headlining material on, and we don't want any gaps or anything like that in the cab area, because obviously it'll look pretty crap. So yeah, I'll slot this back up in place, and then we'll cut it. Obviously these areas, these two front sort of mouldings go down into the A pillars, and then you've got a little cubby hole here, and obviously the main sort of cab light as well, and then handles go in, and then obviously sun visors as well. So yeah, get that back up in there, and then we'll trim around it.
What do you like on it? What's really good for the fun. And then on the other hand, sometimes you see kids and they get introduced to it. Hello! There's going to be some negative things. And I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure on certain jobs, and we gotta figure it out. So it's not all good.
Okay, so you can see I've trimmed around there and taken this section out, and yeah, that is the cab trim or headliner all trimmed up, and then we'll put there's a plastic trim that goes around, screws onto there, and then there's a rubber trim that sort of I don't know, clamshells or clamps, in that sort of fashion over the top of it, and that's what you end up seeing. So yeah, and it finishes that nicely, and obviously this cut out will just go in the bin. So what I'll do is I'll crack on with that, and then I'll show you when that's all trimmed up. Okay, so I'm not focusing on this front trim too much, but you can see we've got it. Yeah, so the headliner trimmed up. I'll turn this torch off so I don't get those shutter speed lines. And this is the plastic internal trim, and you see that this is now screwed through into that steel frame. You see I've left gaps here because there's a curve, so if you bring this trim right into the corner like a mitre, then the rubber trim that goes over the top of this wants to pop out of it, and you'll see a little bit of that. So little trick here is just to make sure that you leave this little contour so that the rubber trim will flow around those corners nicely, cover up that. And you can see I've got some of that Vel trim in this front section here, and obviously it's going to be brought further along. But yeah, the rubber trim will go right around over the top of this, and I'll show you that in a second. But that's nice and fixed on. That profile is trapping that carpet, and it's trapping the headliner, so it's not going to fall down. This is the rubber trim that goes over the top of that plastic trim. You can see the profile of it. You can see it's fairly stiff, and what I'll do is, it's not too cold today, what I'll do is I'll just run the heat gun just along it, being careful not to heat it up too much and sort of mark it or start to sort of burn or melt the plastic. But what that'll do is just make it a lot more malleable, so that when I come to put it on, it will be a lot easier and a bit more forgiving on my fingers and my hands. So yeah, that's the rubber trim that goes over the top. Okay, that's the cab all trimmed up with the final rubber trim, and we've got these loops here as well, and that will allow me to fit these Reimo straps, these friction tension straps. So these will go up, marry with these. These actually, you can double loop them so that they stay up the top there, and as they pull down, it will lock this down into place. That means that I can lower this roof and get this van back outside. And yeah, you can see, happy with how all that trim's come together, and it's a really nice finish on the inside. So yeah, happy about that. And you see these corners of trim, obviously that's going to have carpet loop round, and then you've got the B pillar trims that will come up and cover all of that. So yeah, you see that. You see, like for instance, that little bit there. What I can do is get that trim to splay out and then properly capture around that. But yeah, it's a nice uniform contour right the way the outside. I've done this in the past by sort of going off piste, and rather than using this sort of, manufacturer supplied trim, I made a timber trim up here. Yeah, it's a really lovely finish. I think we did it in a Mercedes Vito, but it takes a lot of time, and it wasn't priced up on this job. Yeah, so it takes us like nearly a day, I'd say, to get all the miters nice in there, and it's one of those things that this definitely does the job, and it's a lot simpler. So yeah, we'll get those get these straps up at the top there, and then we get this roof down and the van out and the MB 100D in, start taking that furniture out.